Good evening. I'm still reporting on the Trumpet. I'm a little under the weather today, so this will be my only report. A recent story in the leftist Politico so reminded me of an ancient biblical passage right out of the most ancient book, Genesis. According to today's Politico, Harvard poll, amid Trump's rise, GOP voters turned sharply away from free trade. 85% of Republicans say that free trade has cost more jobs than it has created, the survey found. Here's our interpretation. Donald Trump has already brought so much good to America from the issues he has popularized during his campaign that it would take the rest of this report just to list them all. But the truth about trade and tariffs and the growth of domestic manufacturing is one of the most important. Why? Because the tortured notion that free trade is a good thing has now finally been punctured. As I've said many times in these reports, free trade is really only slave trade. The Politico piece makes a valiant globalist effort to turn the American herd around, but to no avail. Americans seek, remember, truth, justice, and the American way. Nope, the cat is now out of the bag on the free trade lie, a lie that attacks the truthful concept that the only thing that keeps this wicked world relatively free is sovereign nations using their sovereign money to enforce sovereign borders. What if sovereign independent nations hadn't ganged up against Hitler? All of Europe would be speaking German today. It's a simple fact. But Politico is still pushing. Observers on both sides of the political divide say Donald Trump's anti-trade message has xenophobic undertones. I don't even want to know what their meaning for xenophobic is. It's the new Obama-Clinton attack line, so I don't want any part of it. Just humor me. I think xenophobic means the fear of xenon gas, the inert gas atomic number 54. However, as the aforementioned Bible passage recounts, before Jacob's death, Joseph's brothers came and begged him for his forgiveness for selling him into slavery, a slavery that led him to Egypt. But 50 years later, as second in command to Pharaoh, ruler of mighty Egypt, Joseph could have taken vengeance on his brothers, but he did not. No, Joseph understood God's way. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring about this present result to preserve many people alive. Politico intends to shame those who believe Trump's Make America Great plan, but it's too late. The great American herd has turned towards the truth. The scales have suddenly fallen from their eyes, and here is the amazing truth. The founders of this mighty nation hated the idea of an income tax. For the first 125 years of its existence, the U.S. government derived most of its income from excise taxes, tariffs. The first U.S. tariff income figures began in 1792, when 95% of the federal budget came from tariffs, a grand total income of $4.6 million. The average tariff on imported goods was 15.1%. 68 years later, in 1860, just before the start of the Civil War, tariffs still funded 95% of the federal budget and still stood at 15%. Tariffs stimulate internal manufacturing. Throughout the post-Civil War boom, as America industrialized westward, tariffs still funded more than 50% of the U.S. budget at tariff rates between 30 and 45%. The size of the tariff was a huge election issue in presidential campaigns back then, and America prospered mightily. Everything in those days was made in America. Then came the controversial passage of the 16th Amendment, allowing a federal income tax. From that point, the percentage of income derived from tariffs crashed to less than 1% in just 30 years, and America started its long and deceitful journey into debt, deindustrialization, and joblessness, thanks to the siren song of free trade. Now, only the wealthiest folks control ever-increasing chunks of global manufacturing, and their final coup d'etat is in the 8,000 pages of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Why? Because within those pages, these corporate giants steal giant swaths of national sovereignty of the nations of the Pacific Ring to create an ironclad manufacturing dictatorship that will make it nearly impossible for a nation like the U.S. to rebuild itself back into the manufacturing powerhouse Trump proposes. So the race is on. Can the bad guys shut the door on America's ability to pull itself out of $20 trillion worth of national debt? Once the TPP is signed, that will become even more difficult. Again, free trade is nothing but slave trade. Export manufacturing goes to the nation that can offer the cheapest labor force, and all other national workforces must either join this evil race to the bottom or die. Only the reimposition of tariffs or excise taxes can reverse this. Raising the prices of imported goods is the only way to force the reboot of internal manufacturing of a nation. The only way to put a nation on a solid, sustainable, self-reliant economic base. So thank you, Politico, for pointing this out to us and giving me the opportunity to talk about free trade. And thank you, Donald Trump, for knowing what it is that can make America great again. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment below. This really helps us out. I'm still reporting from Washington. Good day.